Hello everyone, welcome back to the Queen of TV channel. Now, a quick few things before we get into our intro. Guys, I took me a small nap. I done woke up so I can continue going on with the videos today. So now that I've woken up, we're gonna get back into it. Also, I would like to again welcome the 2 new subscribers to the channel. And lastly, there will be cursing and profanity. As you know, if that's not your cup of tea, this channel is not for you. Now, our intro. Hello, everyone. I am your host, the Queen herself, and you are the Prince and Princesses. You're either a subscriber or you are a viewer. Either way, welcome. Today, we will be talking about why I love Cleo Sertori. You all know the drill. We're going to talk about the character development. We're going to talk about the personality. We're going to talk about her story outside of the characters, behaviors, relationships, and does her style reflect the character? And again, I will be linking the H2O video from H2O Just Add Water channel because they had done a video on their clothing style. So let's jump right into it. Cleo's character development. We first meet Cleo at the same time that we meet Emma. We can tell right off the bat that Cleo is more of a girly's girl. She's shy, she's quirky, and very compassionate, right? She ends up falling victim to Zane. And Cleo is basically the heart of H2O because her character is the main chain reaction that leads to a lot of things happening in the show, which is either good or bad. And to be fair, it is all unintentional. So Zane is another person that caused a chain reaction, but he is the one who leads to certain events happening in the first season that becomes trouble for the girls. While Cleo, agreeing to help Zane, is the reason for the positive stuff that happens, and also for that matter, why certain changes come within the group. Cleo gets drifted off, so she gets saved by Ricky. Ricky and Emma meet each other and they become friends because thanks to Cleo, she falls down into the cave entrance on land of Mako Island, which is in turn which leads them into becoming mermaids. Cleo also going to the pool party is what leads Lewis in the second episode to find out that they are mermaids, which she's happy about because that's what she wanted. We also see later down the road, she ends up unintentionally getting exposed before Emma does by giving Lewis her toenail, which gets founded by Dr. Dinner, which leads her curiosity of them. She then ends up dating Lewis, which in return we go into season 2. Once they break up, Lewis, in a very vulnerable state, becomes victim to his abusive relationship with Charlotte. No fault of Lewis's and no fault of Cleo. Cleo actually being the one to meet Charlotte and in a way kind of befriending her leads to Charlotte actually meeting Lewis because it is Cleo who apparently is the one that's introduced to Charlotte first. So you could say that Cleo and Charlotte cross paths by fate, considering they both have a connection to Gracie. Charlotte being Gracie's granddaughter, but Cleo actually being the one who experiences what Gracie has experienced and apparently made it out of the depression of being a mermaid and was able to overcome that and remain one at the very end of all the drama they go through. Cleo actually being the one to reveal her jealousy first, because I so wholeheartedly believe that Charlotte was jealous of Lewis and Cleo first, and that's why she longed to be with him. Cleo revealing her jealousy to Charlotte is what leads them to go into this jealousy battle. Does that mean that Charlotte should have reciprocated that? No, there's a such thing as called being the bigger person. After Cleo embarrasses herself, she ends up going through this process of being on her own, being alone, and trying to figure things out for herself. She does at the expense that Lewis ends up getting made out to be the bad guy by Charlotte's manipulation to try to drive a wedge between him and Cleo, which ends up working. But Lewis is resilient, and we will talk about him in his own video. He is able to make up with Cleo pretty quickly. In a few episodes, maybe it took some weeks to do so in real time, but his willingness not to give up is what leads to them kissing and make up. Not actually kissing, but this does not sit well with Charlotte, who is still overly jealous of the fact that she can't replace Cleo, and she has been trying to replace Cleo since day one. Once her and Lewis had broken up, that's why Charlotte made her moves upon him. Well, all goes to crap once Charlotte becomes a mermaid. Cleo, seeing Ricky's side and Emma and Lewis's side, that yes, they probably should help her, but helping her because she's a mermaid and only befriending her because of that is probably not the best way to go about this, because they have not actually really had good experience with Charlotte. But she reluctantly agrees and she does try, but Charlotte is like not letting up on her. And it falls into the category where Cleo ends up becoming victim to being completely and utterly attacked by Charlotte, which in turn finally leads Lewis to open his eyes and stop being peacekeeper, and ends up dumping Charlotte, and they get back together. Charlotte tries one more ditch effort to hurt Cleo, and it fails spectacularly, and she's up losing her powers. So from the first season, we start off with Cleo being this unconfident character. Her struggles as a mermaid as a whole play in part of her insecurities. They play a part in her like feeling that she's going to be lonely. So when Lewis does join the group, she does drop subtle hints to him from time to time that she likes him and wonders if he would pick her. Because Cleo is the type of girl that wants a guy that would pick them no matter what. That if they were to break up, they would wait for each other, or essentially, if they were truly meant to be, they would not give up on each other no matter what happens. So when Cleo and Lewis finally get together and Lewis finally picks Cleo, she's ecstatic. She's over the moon. So from the season, yes, we start off with Cleo not being fairly confident. But by the end of season one, we see that Cleo becomes a fighter. She gains some resilience. She gains some confidence. So when we get to season two, however, Cleo is handed a curveball. Her parents are divorced. Their marriage ends up ending. Cleo is left picking up the pieces of her family. Not only that, but her mermaid's powers end up changing in season two. And after the of season one, the girls did become very paranoid because they were not that trusting of everything. On top of that, you can see this definitely affect Lewis and how they cannot risk him risking the secret anymore, because let's be fair here. We'll talk about why that is, and that is understandable considering what Lewis did in season one. So that's why they're so hard on the secret thing with him. So when she breaks up with him to try to figure out her life, because to be honest, Cleo's life is a mess now that her mother has left. Um, while she's trying to figure that out and has Charlotte constantly harassing her about her jealousy issue that she had in the third episode, and trying to continuously play on part of that jealousy instead of letting Cleo accept the breakup and move on. She wants to keep Cleo in denial and in a stage of anger. It works out in her favor, but at the same time, I feel like it fucks Charlotte up as well, which is why I wanted to do a video on the deeper meaning of this whole little triangle thing. So once Cleo figures out her life, her and Lewis go back into a stage of healing in their relationship. And once they've had fully healed, they're able to trust each other enough to where they can get back to talking the way that they used to. Except they get another curveball when Charlotte becomes a mermaid, and Cleo tries her best, and she actually was very positive with Charlotte. Charlotte fucks it up for everybody. And she's refusing to willing to let go of this idea that Lewis just does not want her. It's because of Cleo. She thinks by attacking Cleo will get her any results, when in reality it makes her public enemy number one towards Lewis now, and he even turns on her. And in her final battle with Charlotte, Charlotte tries to try her manipulative tactics one more time, using the full moon as a power boost, only to fail again. Now, we do not get a final scene of Cleo and Charlotte actually talking it the fuck out. I would have liked if Charlotte showed up at the Juice That Cafe to speak to Cleo so they can bury the hatchet. I mean, shit, they could do that in the name of Gracie, because out of her memory, they could at least, they don't have to be friends, but they could have at least worked it to talk it out. So in Cleo's character development, yes, Cleo has had her moments of being in the wrong, but a lot of the time in season 2, Cleo was justified in her behaviors. There was literally only like 2 incidents that I could think of where I think Cleo is in the wrong, which is in episode 3, because she was wrong for accusing Charlotte of things that she did not do. But that plan journal incident, I did not care for. That did not count in my eyes. And lastly, how she was acting in episode 7, in the very first half of that episode, but then the second half, she tried to make it up. So, those 2 episodes, I feel that Cleo was in the wrong. Any episodes after those 2, or before those 2, I totally was completely on Cleo's side, and I understood the situation. So it's very understandable for people in relationships that go through something that's difficult as a family dispute and a divorce to decide to take a step back from friendships and relationships. If you are a person who has never experienced this, especially in your teen years for that matter, when you are damn halfway into becoming an adult, you would not understand fully. Especially if you've grown up with both of your parents, and at one point in your life you've gotten used to, like, literally having them already be separated. For me, my parents were together, but they didn't last. So when I was growing up, my dad was not around. Okay? That much, and we worked that out, and I forgave him, and we're repairing our relationship. But I was used to it. So for someone like me seeing it happen to Cleo, I can understand that her situation is different from my situation, because her parents are divorcing when she was literally still 16. We don't know if Cleo became 17 years old yet. So for this to actually happen like very late into her teen years, it makes understandable sense. She's being thrown into already being an adult. She has to be responsible for her sister and help financially be responsible for the house just as much as her father does, to help him cover the bills. So that's a lot of stress, a lot of heartache on a teenager. So I'm glad in her character development they started her off with this quirky, shy character with no confidence, only ended with her having confidence from her having to deal with a real life issue. Not only is she dealing with a broken home storyline, but she's also dealing with a relationship that is affected by this broken home and has to go through the 5 stages of grief. And then has to sit back and apparently deal with a girl that she is very aware is not who she is pretending to be, and be the only one that can see it until when everyone else sees it, it is already too late. And have this girl harass her and try to r- literally make her non-existent in her someone she cares about life. And as a result, by the end of it, she ends up being stronger for it and having enough adversity to fight back. And literally, with the support of her family and her friends, she's able to overcome this person and send that person packing. So kudos to Lewis and Cleo for that. But like, for many fans that hate Cleo for this, I see why they do, because they do not understand this kind of behavior. They've never experienced this. Let alone, it's so easy for them to judge Cleo for acting like this because they have not experienced this. Because they are one of those people that sit here and talk about how they would have handled it different. When you are in someone's shoes like this, you do not know how to act in this situation. If you have not full blown experienced this kind of heartache or this kind of betrayal, or at least in this sense, this literal life changing event in your life, you do not fully understand what she is going through. You can't really judge Cleo, let alone be harsh on her about her independent choices and how to handle this said situation. So, yes, character development on point, because Cleo got the biggest actual like storyline of season two. Like, season two was basically a Cleo season. And if you understood her character and what she was going through, you would see the story behind it. But like I said, I am going to do a m- deeper meaning video on this love triangle, because I feel like a lot of people do not understand this love triangle and how it affects everyone positively and negatively. So let's talk about Cleo's personality. Cleo's personality in season one is obvious that she is very compassionate. She's kind and empathetic. She loves animals. She's like the support system of the group. She basically is like the person who tries the best not to create conflict. She tries to be understanding and stay in the middle and be neutral. Well, by the end of season one, she does find her voice. She learns how to know how to speak up. She stands her ground, and she doesn't allow herself to be bullied and pushed around a little bit. Now we move on to season two. We saw season two with Cleo happy and healthy, but then we see that she is struggling mentally and emotionally with her family, and then having to deal with the fact that her and Cleo's relationship didn't work out and they had to take a break from each other because of that. We see her have to deal with Charlotte, someone who, yes, she accused of doing things the wrong way, but decided to keep her distance and not cause any more problems. So we get a bit of Cleo with Charlotte from season one, where when a conflict has started, Cleo tries to be neutral and stay in the back, be away from everybody and not cause any more conflict. But Charlotte is the type of person that does not know when to just back off or just when to keep her distance from people. She has to keep poking and pushing and picking, which leads to her having a whole lot of problems. But at the same time, it causes Cleo to suffer even more in her depression and her mental state becomes a bit unstable. We see her easily get upset. We see that when she gets betrayed, unlike before, Cleo would be like willing to try. She would be willing to talk it out. She would not give up on her friendships or her relationships. But when Charlotte comes in the mix and mixed with everything else, Cleo ends up like literally not being so forgiving. We see her have to be very convinced. We see this when she apparently feels let down by Lewis, who apparently chooses Charlotte over his friends. The first time that Lewis actually chose someone over Cleo, and Cleo does not handle it well. She blacks him out, and Lewis has to prove to her that he did not choose Charlotte over her, that he is still there for her and them as well, and Charlotte being around does not change anything. And he's right, because that's exactly what he does. And that is enough for him to be able to do damage control due to Charlotte's literal manipulation of the situation, which obviously gives Charlotte the leverage to just back off at this point, because she knows going after Cleo is like suicide. But then once Cleo and Lewis actually get good at this point, and they're healthy at this point, and they are healed, Charlotte decides to try to separate them using her mermaidness, which obviously does not work. Like I said, Cleo and Lewis had healed at this point, so Cleo reverts back to season 1 self. She does not give up on Lewis like all the others do, like the other two do. She ends up staying resilient. So Charlotte takes things too far, which only results in Lewis proving once again he will always choose her. And he does. He leaves Charlotte and chooses Cleo. And as a result, Charlotte is left high and dry, especially when she loses her powers when trying to go after Cleo again. So we see Cleo start off going through different behavior issues due to the effects of the divorce, the effects of her breakup, and the effects of having to deal with someone like Charlotte, who shows that she is quite toxic, and the lying person that Cleo accuses her of being, because she knows that she's not genuine. And I don't think Charlotte is used to someone calling her out for being a lying and manipulative person. So dealing with someone like Cleo, who apparently does not quickly believe her, or at least in a sense likes her for whatever person she pretends to be, she decides to be her real self with Cleo. But at the end of all this, Cleo gets a lot stronger and even more resilient, and her confidence is completely complete. Because once we get to season 3, which we'll talk more about, Cleo is a whole different person, okay? She is a lot more confident. She is strong. She does not back down, and she does not allow people to push her around. Cleo has her life together. Now, does she have a story outside of the characters? She absolutely does. In season 1, she is learning to be more confident. She is learning to accept herself more as a mermaid. She is, quite frankly, going through a character change moment. She is becoming her own person. And she succeeds. And by the time we get to season 2, she does have her own other storyline. We see her go through a broken home storyline. We see her go through the 5 stages of grief storyline. We see her actually go through her own bully storyline when she is bullied by Charlotte. And this is a storyline far from Charlotte, because it adds back into Cleo's insecurities as a mermaid, and also her mental and emotional state, which is broken at this point by the time Cleo gets her new powers, and she cannot hide her hurt anymore. So outside of Cleo, Emma, Ricky, and Lewis, and Charlotte, yes, Cleo has her own storyline. So Cleo's behaviors. Cleo behaviors are obviously in season 1 where Cleo is naive, where Cleo is trusting, where Cleo is very quiet and not willing to cause conflict. Her behavior does change when she starts sticking up for herself and her friends. We see in season 2 that her behavior turns to a dark turn due to the sad situations and tragedies that she has to deal with. And we see her show signs of anger. We see her show moments of small types of jealousies. We do also see her show signs of being depressed, which is very ignored in the fandom, and no one seems to care or either realizes that Cleo is like literally depressed and feels and abandoned by everybody around her. Hell, to be fair, I feel like a lot of people seem like they think she deserves to be abandoned by Lewis. So it's like I don't know what to make of that. But she is able to overcome these negative behaviors and positively be able to heal, to work things out in her family, to work things out with Lewis, and to actually gain more like emotional high tolerance towards people like Charlotte, who is desperate to try to get under her skin because they know for a fact they are insecure themselves and only want to bring her down. Now, as for her relationship with her father is obviously a relationship of respect and willingness to let her grow up. She starts to not only become no longer his little girl, but she becomes her own woman, and he becomes proud of her and accepts that. We do not notice for sure, we're told, but we know from the story that Cleo is close to her mom. So when her mom leaves, that does affect like Cleo like very emotionally, and she longs for that family connection back. Her relationship with Kim is obviously complicated. They both are two different people. They both want two different things, so they clash from time to time. Her relationship with Emma is like she's Emma's little sister and Emma is her big sister. Her relationship with Ricky is one of a kind of relationship that I can only describe is that if Emma is her sister, Ricky is her companion, her friend, someone who she can mediate with, someone she, yes, has moments of where they fight, but like they become sisters over time as well once Emma leaves. That doesn't mean that Emma's no longer Cleo's big sister. It just means that Ricky becomes her other big sister. Her relationship with Lewis is a childhood romance that's been brewing for many years, and when they finally get together, they get together when things are to be believed to be happy and good, and they go through the honeymoon phase. When they break up, the breakup is understandable at this point because Lewis' obsession with the mermaid stuff goes too far, and Cleo's broken home situation leads them to have to take a break, but that gets taken advantage of when they're both trying to figure themselves out outside of their relationship by Charlotte. But other than that, they are able to heal and they're able to somewhat, without saying the words, but only through their actions, forgive one another from their hurt, and it results in them actually being able to repair themselves in a friendship type relationship before they get back together by the very end of season 2. But also they able to figure out who they are as individuals outside of their relationship and the mermaid's secret. And all is said and done for that matter. Now her relationship with Charlotte is a very toxic relationship. It is obvious a relationship of like the crossing paths with the mean girl. Like Cleo obviously was wrong in accusing her of burning her school down and having a boyfriend, but the stuff that Charlotte was accused of was in my eyes bad, but not serious enough for Charlotte to feel threatened by Cleo. But like I said, my guess is that Charlotte was already jealous of Lewis and Cleo, and Cleo was just the first one to reveal her small amount of jealousy. So Charlotte decided to play upon that and hide her own insecurities and jealousy and try to bring Cleo down. She became Cleo's bully. She also became Cleo's abuser. But by the end of the day, Charlotte could not prevent Lewis and Cleo from spending time together. Let her know, even in her relationship with Lewis, she could not push them further away from each other. So she failed in her victim narrative and she failed in her war against Cleo, even though it wasn't really a competition, considering that Lewis loved Cleo regardless. So like I said, it would have been nice to let them have one small confrontation, considering that when they both met, they both were, in all honesty and truth, nice to each other and didn't have an issue with each other. And it seemed like they would have been friends, but it all got fucked up because Charlotte immediately got a close connection towards Lewis and a one-sided crush. So it would have been nice to see like Cleo and Charlotte like have one small moment of talking where we see how Charlotte feels towards Cleo now that her and Lewis is broken up and everything that has happened so far. But we don't get that. We get a Lewis and Charlotte moment where Lewis ends up getting some type of closure, but Cleo doesn't get any type of closure, considering that it was actually Cleo who was first introduced to Charlotte and should have also gotten a closure. I don't know. Maybe they filmed a scene of this and just didn't put it out there, so we'll just never know. Now, does her style reflect her character? Like I said, I will link the H2O Just That Water video in the description. But Cleo from the video has the color palette of pinks, purples, and she wears teal. Teal means she wearing a blue-green type color. To me, it looks like it's blue. But when Cleo wears blue, she is confident. She is within her element. She is Mermaid Cleo. She's stronger and very resilient. It's also fair to mention that Cleo also wears yellow. Cleo wears yellow when she's happy. We also, it's also fair to mention that Cleo also wears the color white like Emma does, and when she's wearing white, that's when she's like healed and renewed and like in a state of pureness. But her main color palette, yes, is purple, pinks, and teals. So teals are either like light blues, baby blues. She be having patterns in her clothing. Not to mention when she's wearing like her purples. Her purples are either like deeper purples or light purples. She does do a lot of layering colors. But when Cleo wears purple, this is where Cleo is in a state of like paranoia, which Charlotte ends up adapting her purple color at the very end of season 2, where she is severely and utterly paranoid and at this point unstable. So you know how Cleo is in that moment when she's wearing purple. Her emotional state is not all the way clear. She is paranoid, she is stressed out and worried. Now when she layers that purple with a different color, it's more in the middle. Like Cleo is a lot calmer, but also she is suspicious. When Cleo actually wears the color teal, like I said, she's confident. She's Mermaid Emma. I mean Mermaid Cleo. My bad. So when we see Cleo in her pink color, this is when Cleo is a girly girl. Cleo wears pink, not like pink pink. She wears like hot pinks. Like they look a bit darker in like reddish colors. So it's like hot pink. And this is when Cleo is being like an absolute girly girl. She's just being fashion wise. She does wear pink pinks and light pinks. She wears beadings and necklaces and stuff like that. So her style is like ahead of its time. Like she's like a trendsetter type person without trying to be. So it makes sense to me why Charlotte would want to hone into that and why she would want to start wearing clothes that resemble Cleo and hairstyles that resemble Cleo and try to be more like Cleo than she does with Gracie, Emma, and Ricky. But you know, it is what it is. So with all that being said, this is why I love Cleo as a character, because Cleo is the human self. Cleo is the equivalent female of, in my opinion at least, on what, not a woman I would say, but what a girl is, what a teenage girl is. Like Cleo is like more realistically a teen girl than anybody else in the show. Ricky is more of a rebellious tomboy, and Emma is more of with the guys type sporty person. While you have Charlotte, who is more of a preppy type person who is classy, but not really like girly girl. She doesn't know how to be a girly girl. She only knows how to be proper. So obviously she's gonna clash with someone like Cleo, who isn't proper and who apparently acts more human than robotic. So that also explains why she clashed her sister, despite the fact they both wear the colors pink as their color palettes. Um, Kim is what I would not say is a girly girl. I think Kim is like a princess. She acts like a princess all the time. So yeah, my love for Cleo doesn't like stem from the fact that, oh, she's a fan favorite. Of course I like her. She was here first, la di da. No, I like Cleo because I can actually connect more with Cleo. I actually um connect with a lot of characters who remind me of Cleo. Cleo is one of at least 20 characters I have a stronger connection with than any of the other characters. In my Emma video, my feelings towards Emma is like I see Emma more as like a person that would be like a big sister, but not someone that would like speak to me as a person. Cleo does that for me. Cleo speaks to me completely, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Because I am also a closed off, reserved person who's quirky, who doesn't like conflict, and I have spent majority of my life being completely neutral and not wanting to cause problems. So when I do cause problems, I do get embarrassed, and I've had moments of jealousy. So I understand Cleo more than any other character on this show. She's basically like my spirit human. But that's all I got for you guys today. Um, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I have to remember to do that in every video. But without further ado, I hope you have a blessed day. I hope you have a wonderful day. If no one's told you this today, I'm telling you, I love you, and I will see you guys in the next video. So until then, bye guys.